Feat Review. Tavern Brawler, D tier. This is an example of reverse engineering a feat without understanding what the core fantasy of that feat actually is, or a good grasp of how the game mechanics work. So what is the scene that you picture when you think Tavern Brawler? Is it perhaps someone hitting someone else over the head with a chair or a beer bottle? Pushing, punching, shouting, drinking, and staggering around? Most likely, yes, this is the core fantasy that you think of. At first glance, you might look at it and say, oh hey, this feat kind of has some of that. Your punch gets better, you can reroll damage on your punches, you get a free push each turn, which is definitely the coolest mechanical part of this feat. Oh, and look at that, you can even hit someone over the head with a chair. Isn't that nice? You think this until you realize a few things. Firstly, anyone who wants to do unarmed combat will either be a monk, or they will want to pick up the unarmed fighting style that was introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Wizards of the Coast needs to make that fighting style part of the base options. It is vital if you're going to get any enjoyment out of being a grappler, for it does a good job at facilitating the core fantasy of being a punchy man, even though it is admittedly worse than most of the other fighting styles unless you're actively getting value out of grappling people. But that's not a bad place for it to be mechanically. It's certainly much better than what we'd gotten up until that point. But here's the thing, if you can make your unarmed strike deal d4 damage from this feat, and some other ability gives you the same or higher damage die on your unarmed strike, you might as well not even have it. It becomes completely redundant. And what, you expect me to think that doing a dagger's worth of damage with your fist is somehow impressive and worth investing a whole feat in? Excuse me? Next up, damage rolls. It doesn't work very well for great weapon wielders who roll 2d6 for damage, so why exactly do you think that you're going to get a lot out of it? It's something, sure. It's not bad, but is it good? Not really. Shove. I have no real complaints here. It's the sole redeeming mechanical thing that you can actually do with this feat. It's actually cool and has a lot of potential. This was probably the starting point, and the rest of the feat was tacked on later without thinking about it. Unlike the previous version of this feat, which let you use everything from a fish to a rope to a broken bottle to a rock to an umbrella to a lantern to a chandelier, you can now only use furniture as an improvised weapon. Okay, sure, that's a little bit inconvenient to be forced to carry a chair with you everywhere, but it's not the end of the world. What you get out of it is the benefits of wielding a great club. How else would you get that benefit? Oh yeah, you could just carry a great club. And a great club isn't even good. It's considered laughably underpowered compared to the other weapons in the simple weapons category, such as quarterstaff or spear, which are at the very least versatile. Maybe if you could treat the chair as a maul, you might at least say that it's not the worst thing ever, but let's be real here, that would still be incredibly situational. Imagine, if you will, that you're disarmed, but you do specifically have access to a chair. This is the only scenario where this part of the feat even gets close to be considered underwhelming in its power level. Without this highly specific circumstance, it goes from underwhelming to completely superfluous. But do you know what's even better than that? Some of you will have spotted this problem, and if you have, well done you, gold star. And that is that none of the other features from this feat work with your improvised weapon. If you hit someone with a chair, you don't even get to push them for free. You don't even get to reroll the damage. What a complete and total disaster this feat already is. Absolutely atrocious, filled to the brim with redundancies and pointlessness. Take a moment to really relish the utter, all-consuming despair radiating from this particular design choice. Take a little sip. Yes, lovely. So, how do we fix it? Well, let's see. Weapon improvisation. You have weapon proficiency in all simple weapons. In addition, you treat any improvised weapon you wield as though it was the nearest simple weapon equivalent, i.e. a rolling pin is treated as a club, a broken bottle is treated as a dagger, a chair is treated as a great club, a garden hoe is treated as a spear, etc. Mighty Blow. You add half of your proficiency bonus to the damage dealt by your attacks when using your unarmed strikes and improvised weapons. Shunt. When you hit a large-sized or smaller creature, using an unarmed strike or an improvised weapon as part of the attack action on your turn, after dealing damage, you can choose to push the target up to 5 feet away from you. Once a creature has been pushed by this feature, that creature cannot be pushed again until the start of your next turn. Takedown. When you score a critical hit against a large-sized or smaller creature using an unarmed strike or improvised weapon as part of the attack action on your turn, after dealing damage, you can choose to knock the target prone. So what does all of this do? Firstly, weapon improvisation means that you can have fun using random junk that you find lying around as a weapon. Sure, this might be the Mother May I style of mechanics that Jeremy Crawford mentioned in his most recent video. The thing is that it doesn't actually matter all that much, because it's all about just using common sense, and the examples are quite clear. Secondly, you will likely do halfway decent damage with your improvised weapons as well, thanks to the bonus from Mighty Blow, which scales. This also means that your default unarmed strike deals 2+ strength modifier in damage. You might not think that that's very much, but half of a d4 is 2.5, so it's actually basically the same as before. You lose almost no damage, it scales to become stronger as you level, and isn't made redundant if you're a monk, have a natural weapon racial trait, or have the unarmed fighting style. Thirdly, you get Shunt. I limited it to creatures of a certain size category, because even though it adds textual bloat to the ability, it is very silly that you can push an Elder Dragon around without even breaking a sweat. However, under this version, if you hit 2 separate creatures with your attacks, you can push them both. Once a creature has been pushed by this feature, it cannot be pushed again until the start of your next turn. The reason why you cannot just go rah rah and push the same creature multiple times is that the fighter will inevitably get his 4 attacks at level 20 and action surge and zoom his opponent 40 feet around the battlefield. Yes, it can get a bit silly, but affecting multiple targets once per turn, in my opinion, that's perfectly fine. Lastly is Takedown, which basically gives you the ability to recreate those memorable bar fight scenes where someone gets hit over the head with a jug or a bottle or a chair and just collapses onto the floor, possibly with little birds circling around their head tweeting as the person's eyes spin wildly in all directions. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's quite fun. Maybe Wizards could try to streamline my version of the feat a little bit more, maybe return the push to only once per turn, but I don't think it's too strong, and everything that a player could really want or need is present here. Now before I go, there is one last exciting thing to talk about. As promised, the goodies are finally here. I now have a full class rework of the Barbarian, which I have dubbed the Fury Barbarian, that you can download for free right now using one of the links down below. Long story short, I think that the way Rage works is counterintuitive, which causes it to conflict with the core fantasy of being a barbarian meathead rage machine. Rather than cautiously managing how many times you can rage per day in case you waste one, my version gives you more fury the more you get hit, and encourages you to proactively spend it. It also gives you a way of drawing aggro, as the video gamers among you would say. In other words, giving you more ways to encourage enemies into attacking you, so that you get hit more, which produces more fury, which then is spent on various things. Go check that out and tell me what you think in the comments below. So, with that said, subscribe to this channel for more D&D homebrew content, leave a like, and that's all from me for now. Mr. Wizardly, signing off.